Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. اللهم أخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمنا بنور الفهم وافتح علينا بمعرفة العلم وسهل أخلاقنا بالحلم واجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اجعل أعمالنا خالصة لوجهك ولا تجعل فيها حظا لغيرك. وصل اللهم على سيدنا ونبينا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh once again. Um, we carry on with our reader Man Kasar al-Asnam. In our last lesson we finished the chapter on Ru'ya Ibrahim, page 34, and I think we were to start with page 35 for homework. Is that correct? Let me just check quickly. Hey guys, yeah?
Yes, Maulana.
So page 35 was for homework, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just read page 35 with the meaning and then we'll carry on. I think we went through uh, page number 34 already last week. Okay. Page 35. Al-Ka'batu, which means the Kaaba. ذهب إبراهيم وعاد بعد ذلك وأراد أن يبني بيتا لله. Ibrahim went وعاد بعد ذلك and he returned after that. Meaning, remember in the last thing, Ibrahim alayhi salam left his son and his wife in Mecca. And or rather, the last one was where he was going to slaughter his son for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then um, instead gave him Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instead gave him the ram that was slaughtered, and that became our practice on the day of Eid al-Adha. So what happens? ذهب Ibrahim. Again, Ibrahim left. So Ibrahim alayhi salam wouldn't stay in Mecca all the time. He would be in Mecca, then he would leave to um, the other area, and then he would come back. I think it might be, the area in which Ishaq was with his family, with the Bani Israel. And then he would come back to Mecca and go between places. Right? So, ذهب إبراهيم. Ibrahim alayhi salam left. وعاد بعد ذلك. And then he came back again another time. وأراد أن يبني بيتا لله. And he intended or he wanted to build a house for Allah. وكانت البيوت كثيرة. There were many homes. The homes were many. وكان بيت لله يعبدون فيه وما كان بيت لله يعبدون فيه الله. There was not a house for Allah in which they would worship Allah. يعبدون فيه الله. They would worship in it Allah. That's a literal translation. A better translation would be وكانت البيوت كثيرة. There were many houses. وما كان بيت لله يعبدون فيه الله. But there was no house for Allah in which they would worship Allah. Or you could say they would worship Him.
Maaf, Maulana, the ma, does the ma make it negative?
Yes, the ma makes it negative. Remember in Sarf, when you have a past tense verb, how do you negate the verb in Sarf?
Is it lam or lan?
Okay, those are like the more advanced negations.
Okay.
What about the some basic negation?
La.
La.
If it's a present tense verb, then I negate it with la. If it's mudari, then I negate it with la. If it's maldi, then I negate it with ma.
Ma. Okay.
Right?
Because
If it's
because I couldn't get the translation. I went ma as in what, and it just
okay. So when you have a ma before a past tense verb, then it's very likely for negation.
negation. Okay.
Ma plus past tense, negation. La plus present tense, also negation.
Okay.
Right? So وما كان بيت لله يعبدون فيه الله وأراد إسماعيل أن يبني بيتا لله مع والده. Ibrahim or Ismail wanted أن يبني to build بيتا لله, a house for Allah, مع والده, with his father. ونقل إبراهيم وإسماعيل الحجارة من الجبال. Ibrahim and Ismail transferred the rock from the mountain. Yeah, you could have said that differently, but anyways. وكان إبراهيم يبني وكان إبراهيم يبني الكعبة ويبني الكعبة rather بيده وكان إسماعيل يبني الكعبة بيده. Ibrahim uh, used to build or was building the Kaaba with his hand, and Ismail was building the Kaaba with his hand. Literally, yeah, that's what it literally means. They were building it by hand.
Mahmoud, for line 4, just from an understanding point of view, is this saying that Nabi Ibrahim used to get the rocks from the mountain to build the Kaaba? So it's an action and not just bringing a big rock from the mountain and then
Yes, you would transfer the rock, meaning like the
bricks.
collective, yeah,
Yeah.
the bricks from the mountain.
Okay.
وكان إبراهيم يذكر الله ويدعو, and Ibrahim would remember Allah or mention Allah and supplicate him or call upon him. Again, see, it's kind at the beginning, but in present tense verbs, يذكر and يدعو. What effect does that have?
Continuous
Continuous. That's why I translate this. He
use.
would remember, or you can say he used to remember, or you, yeah. So it's saying all the while that he was building the Kaaba, he would remember Allah and he would call upon Allah. وَكَانَ إِسْمَاعِيلُ يَذْكُرُ اللَّهَ وَيَدْعُو. And Ismail would also remember Allah and call upon him. Okay, the word also is not there. That's understood. Any questions on that? If there's no questions, then we can go into page number 36. We can get into our breakaway groups for about 10 minutes, inshallah, and then just work through as much of page 36 as you can, inshallah. Right, you can see there's a verse of Quran, and then some of the sentences are like the same because it's for Ibrahim and Ismail. All right, can we go to our breakaway groups? Okay, assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. Before we move on, are there any questions on anything that was covered in the groups?
Malena, just one question, number 11.
Okay.
وَيُسَافِرُ الْمُسْلِمُونَ. Is that the una? That's the Muslims that's traveling, eh? Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Why?
Now I was looking for the Rafa, but I realized it's una, so it's
Right. Brilliant. That's it. The una is shows you there is Raf. Good.
Molana, that verb, we haven't done that verb, right? It's not the yusafiru.
No, you haven't done that one yet. Even this one, yeah.
Because initially I thought it can be the majhul form because of the dhamma, but it doesn't make sense.
No. There's not majhul. If you want a simple rule for majhul, when you can identify whether something is majhul or not, if it has a dhamma at the beginning, right? Firstly, you must make a distinction. If it's past tense, it must have a dhamma at the beginning and a kasra on the second root letter. On the second root letter, right? And if it's mudari', then it must have a dhamma at the beginning and a fatha on the second root letter. So you see, this one here is mudari', right? Yusafir is mudari'. You can see because of the ya at the beginning.
Yes,
It
Molana.
starts with a dhamma,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have a fatha on the second root letter. It has a kasra on the second root letter. Can you see that?
Yes, Molana.
So
I
therefore, this
just
one
thought.
cannot.
I just thought your rule didn't make sense there, but you have a difference between the past and the present tense. It's,
Yes.
for the past tense, it must have a fatha, and in this present tense, it must have a kasra.
Other way around.
Oh,
For
okay.
majhul, right? Majhul must always start with a dhamma. But then if it's
Yes.
past tense, it must have a kasra on the second root letter.
Ah,
If it's mudari, it must have a fatha on the second root letter.
okay. Got it, Maulana.
That should always work. Yeah. Inshallah. Okay. No other questions? Then we'll move on to. Okay, so then we'll move on to back to our surah bi'idhnillah ta'ala. We're busy with
Maulana,
Surah Al-Falaq.
just before Maulana moves on, just that
Bismillah.
barakallah. That how do can Maulana quickly just very quickly just explain Kandala, man?
Okay. This baraka is also a verb. It's also a verb, but a verb form that we haven't done yet. You see, you know the verbs that you know or that we've learned thus far, right? They're just made up of 3 root letters. Fa, la, for example. And then we make it present tense, it becomes yaf'alu. And then there's certain things that we can do to the end of it. We can add certain things at the end. Sometimes the ya at the beginning will change to a ta or hamza or noon. But generally, it's all of this kind of form, right? And then we know how to make it into a amr, right? But all that we're doing is we're just adapting this verb over here, and we're doing some changes. Now there's other verb forms. Like sometimes we have a verb form where we add in an extra, a shadda, for example, fa'ala, we'll change it to fa'ala, for example. But that's like I said, that's a verb form that we haven't learned yet. So I don't need to worry about it. Now baraka is a similar thing. baraka is a verb form where we add a alif after the first root letter. Right? So instead of saying fa'ala, we say fa'ala. So the root letters are barakaf, but instead of saying baraka, we have here baraka. But essentially, this is still a past tense verb. It's a maldi verb. But it's a maldi verb that we haven't learned yet. Once we learn those, inshallah, you'll see that it's very simple. We'll learn it with Mona Khalil says, let's go to that, inshallah. Let's hope. The most important thing for you to know, I understand completely if you tell me, for example, I couldn't identify where exactly this verb fits, because actually safara or yusafiru is the same type of verb like baraka. This is just the past tense and that's the present tense. But if you tell me, like, I couldn't see where exactly that verb fit in, man. Like I couldn't see with safara, yusafiru. I can't see where this verb baraka fits in as well. That is because it's a verb form that we haven't learned yet, so that's expected. But what will help you here is to identify that it is a past tense verb. That's all. So even though it's a verb form we haven't learned, the same thing that applies to verbs usually apply over here. I must look for the fa'il. How do I look for the fa'il? First, I look at the end. If there's nothing at the end, then I look to the left. Is there something in a raf on the left? Yes, there's Allah. Okay, I don't have to look any further. Barakallah. What does it mean? Allah blessed. Fil Kaaba, in Allah blessed, or Allah placed blessing in the Kaaba. وَتَقَبَّلَ مِنْ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَإِسْمَاعِيلَ, and he accepted from Ibrahim and Ismail. So that can be read like that. But remember what we said last week when we were doing this, these two sentences here. Sallallahu ala Ibrahim wa sallama, and Sallallahu ala ibnihi Ismail wa sallama. What did we discuss over there?
And then I said it's like if it's it's like a dua, né? It's like that's like it gives you an indication that you're making dua or something like that.
Okay, but what gives you that indication that you're making dua?
Past
The
tense.
shadda or the past tense. The past tense.
No, the sister mentioned it, right? The past tense. When you have a sentence starting with a past tense verb and then usually Allah after it, then it indicates to a dua form. Like you have barakallahu. So what does that mean? It literally means Allah blessed. But it can also mean may Allah bless. You hear the dua a lot whenever you go to a nikah, you'll hear the imam whatever saying, oh, and everybody will congratulate the wedded couple. Barakallahu fikuma, wa barakallahu lakuma, wa baraka alaykuma, wa jama'a baynakuma fi khair. Barakallah. Essentially, it means may Allah bless.
So Mulana, is the past tense here is just to denote a dua, because it was in our group we got confused between, because it's the past tense and the fee, and to translate it into a understandable sentence was a bit confusing, because
How
Allah
did you
blessed
translate
in
it?
the Kaaba.
You just translate and Allah placed blessings in.
We just say Allah blessed the Kaaba.
That's also fine.
Is it fine? Okay.
That's also fine.
But I mean, is it more correct to say then may Allah put blessings in the Kaaba?
The thing is, it can be understood both ways perfectly fine.
Okay.
Because you see, why it would be understood perfectly fine here is because the Kaaba has been blessed all that time. You understand? So you can understand it as a continuing dua, or you can just understand it as Allah blessed. Why I'm telling you that is because you apply the very same thing in the next sentence. Sallallahu ala Ismail wa sallam. Sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa sallam. It's the same thing. So barakallah, sallallahu, you can understand it as may Allah. Just as you can understand it as past tense Allah did, you can also understand it as may Allah. All right? Okay. Then we move on, inshallah. Suratul Alaq. What's going on?